negotiations are still taking place in Strasbourg, and I think anybody who has taken part in EU business on behalf of this or any previous government will know that it is far from unusual for deadlines to be stretched and for talks to be going on late. And I would emphasise to the House, Mr. Speaker, that the intention of my right honourable friend the Prime Minister is to secure a deal that works for the national interest of our country, and she will persist in those negotiations until she is satisfied that that is what has been achieved. But I can, Mr. Speaker, provide the House with an update tonight on what has been agreed so far, and clearly the Government will update the House at the earliest opportunity tomorrow, should there be an outcome to the continuing talks in Strasbourg that will have an impact upon tomorrow's debate. So this evening in Strasbourg, the Prime Minister and my right honourable friend the Secretary of State for exiting the EU have secured legally binding changes that strengthen and improve the withdrawal agreement and political declaration. The House spoke clearly on the 29th of January when it voted in favour of honouring the decision of the British people and leaving the European Union with a deal that works for the UK. And the primary issue of concern then was the Northern Ireland backstop. This House said it needed legally binding changes, and today that is what the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State have achieved. And tonight we will be laying two new documents in the House: a joint legally binding instrument on the withdrawal agreement and protocol on Northern Ireland, and a joint statement to supplement the political declaration. The first provides confirmation that the EU cannot try to trap the UK in the backstop indefinitely, and that doing so would be an explicit breach of the legally binding commitments that both sides have agreed. If, contrary to all expectations, the EU were to act with that intention, the United Kingdom could use this acceptance of what could constitute an explicit breach as the basis for a formal dispute through independent arbitration that such a breach had occurred, ultimately suspending the protocol if the EU continued to breach its obligations. On top of this, the joint instrument also reflects the United Kingdom's and the European Union's commitment to work to replace the backstop with alternative arrangements by December 2020, setting out explicitly that these arrangements do not need to replicate the provisions of the backstop in any respect. By including this commitment in the joint instrument, this provision on alternative arrangements will be legally binding.